Hi everyone, my name is Joseph Michael, and today I want to discuss X-Men Days of Future Past. So it's a sequel to X-Men First Class, and it came out on May 23rd, 2014. And it has a pretty big cast. It has the most of the returning characters from First Class, in addition to returning characters from the original X-Men trilogy. So just a quick disclaimer again, I haven't seen the original X-Men trilogy in quite a while, probably since it first came out. And I'm not really the biggest X-Men fan. I do enjoy the movies, but I have not read any of the comic books. I actually do own some of them digitally, and I am hoping to start reading them someday. I think I have the one written by Josh Whedon and the Grant Morrison one as well, and also the X-Force, not the modern one, but with Psylocke and Wolverine and a couple other characters, and I think Deadpool is part of it as well. But again, just explaining this. I'm just explaining this to establish that I'm a casual fan of X Men. So just keep that in mind. With all that being said, though, did I enjoy this movie? Yes, I really did. I do think that this movie was better, stronger than First Class. And so I guess really quickly we'll just discuss the cast. So James McAvoy returns as Professor X, the younger version of him, but we also have Patrick Stewart returning as Charles Xavier. We have Michael Fassbender returning as Magneto or Eric. I can't pronounce his last name. And we also have Ian McKellen returning as Magneto and Eric as well. So again, really big fan favorites. I am aware about that returning, and they did such a great organic job of making these two stories or two different casts mesh really well. And something that I did kind of complain about in my last video was about the inorganicness or lack of organicness when it came to the Wolverine cameo. I just feel like it was too on the nose. I do like how they referenced that in this movie. So Wolverine is sent back to the past. So spoilers. The movie begins with the explanation that the future for mutants is quite horrible, or rather, I guess it's the present for them. They're being hunted down. The ones who have not been hunted down, they're being forced to live in a certain lifestyle. They're wearing collars, and they're just basically oppressed. And any free X-Men, they're forced to run away from the Sentinels that are hunting them. And what's pretty cool is that I am aware about the Sentinels. I'm used to them being really big because of the cartoon show. I'm not sure if this version of the Sentinels does come from the comics or it's just a movie adaptation, but at the beginning of the movie, the Sentinels that we see are sleek, smaller in design. They are taller than your typical human, but not as tall as the ones that classically think about. And they're also able to adapt to the different mutant powers. And truly, they are the ultimate killing machine for mutants, unfortunately. It kind of reminds me of, I forgot what the creature's name is specifically, but from Star Wars The New Jedi Order, the Yuuzhan Vong, an invading extragalactic force. They create specific creatures to specifically hunt down Jedi. Anyways, but that's what it kind of reminds me about. And so the X-Men of the future, they devise a plan to send Xavier's mind back to the past to convince a Mystique to not kill a Trask, who's played by Peter Dinklage, because that killing of Trask is what it makes the Sentinel program take off. It's too dangerous. Kitty Pryde, the one who utilizes her powers to send people back in time, she explains that that's going to kill the individual, and then Wolverine steps in and offers himself because he has his healing abilities, and so Wolverine goes back to the past. All of that was just context to explain that when Wolverine seeks out Charles Xavier, Charles Xavier tells him, the young version of him tells him, I seem to recall that you told me to, I usually don't mind cussing, but because it's YouTube, I'm not going to cuss, but F off. Specifically, I don't think he told him to F off. I think he told him another phrase, but the movie paraphrased it just to express what Charles Xavier wanted Wolverine to do. But I do like how they mentioned that again. It was very organic. With that being said, I have to say I'm not usually well versed when it comes to acting, but some actors they really impressed me with their acting skills. Right off the top of my head, Christian Bale and Russell Crowe, and Bryan Cranston. Actually, he's probably the first actor that made me realize that acting was a skill that one refined through his portrayal of Walter White in Breaking Bad. I have to say that Hugh Jackman's portrayal of Wolverine, I could see why a lot of people state that no one else could play Wolverine. His absence, didn't really feel it in First Class because again, maybe if I had seen the original trilogy, I would have felt that absence. But I like the cast that was in First Class. I think they all did a great job of delivering and carrying the movie. But when it came to Wolverine and Hugh Jackman, it just felt so natural the way that Wolverine's character was able to mesh really well with the cast of the future and the cast of the past. And again, I could totally see why a lot of people are Hugh Jackman fans. I am aware that for the next X-Men movie, Apocalypse, I believe it's called, Hugh Jackman will again be absent for the most part of it in it. So I'm curious to see if my mindset, my perspective, if I'm going to feel, oh no, I'm feeling the absence of Hugh Jackman. I wish he was present with his character, but that'll be for a future video. Going back to Days of Future Past. Yeah, so overall, it's a very personal story, I would say. It's focusing on Mystique or slash Raven and trying to save her moral self from conducting an action that will have huge repercussions for mutant kind. I actually really like Magneto's character as well. I love how he was willing to work with Charles Xavier, but he's just an individual that just he puts his love for mutants so high that it goes over individuals. He has respect for Mystique, but once he discovers that Mystique's actions is going to lead to the possible extinction and for sure the guaranteed oppression of mutants, Magneto has no qualms and taking out Mystique from the playing board, or quite literally just killing her. And I did feel bad for Mystique, and she was an individual who went from having people who cared about her to people who cared about her that want to kill her, and her feeling isolated and her ignoring those who truly did have her best interests in mind. I'm thinking about Charles Xavier, and but yeah, so I did really feel the emotional conflict that Mystique's character had. By the time the movie ends, I'm also glad that Magneto was let go, just because I wouldn't want to trust the government hands on Magneto. A quick aspect, I know I'm kind of jumping around with this movie, but it's revealed that Magneto is in prison because of the fact that he assassinated JFK. But he explains that that was not the case. He was actually protecting JFK from Mystique, and supposedly JFK was a mutant. I really don't mind that detail about Magneto's character. I do feel like when I say they, I mean the writers, they've established him enough as a nuanced character that I do believe he's a good individual, but he just doesn't accomplish his goals in the morally best of ways, right? His end goals, I don't think they're evil or bad or morally objectifiable, but again, it's just how he achieves those goals is where the issue comes into play. I also do really like Beast's character. The actor who portrays him, Nicholas Hoult, does a good job. I do wish um, that there was more of a romantic relationship between Beast's character and Mystique's character. It keeps seeming like they keep hinting towards it, but I guess I could see why they never hit it off, just because they're always in two different points in their lives, and they're also not just in two different points in their lives, but also different ideologies as well. So maybe that's just a natural aspect. Excuse me. Oh no, the first time I saw this, so I was unaware that the First Class, Days of Future Past, Apocalypse, and I think even the Dark Phoenix movie, I think they're all part of the same continuity. I always thought that Apocalypse, at First Class, and Days of Future Past were the only ones that were connected, and after that, it just went on its own isolated storytelling. So yeah, I'm looking forward to watching Apocalypse and being able to see these characters that I'm not going to lie, I'm loving the portrayal that they're doing. Michael Fassbender, Jennifer Lawrence, and of course James McAvoy, Nicholas Hoult. Even something I do have to complain. I don't know the actor's name, but the individual who plays Havoc. Let me quickly, because I do have the characters right here. Lucas Till. I do wish that Havoc's character was present more often. I'm not gonna lie, in the first movie, I thought he was kind of your stereotype, but by the end, I was like, oh, I really like the interaction that Havoc has with other characters. And unfortunately, Havoc, despite most the biggest named actors coming back for this movie, unfortunately, most of the supporting cast, they don't return from First Class. And Havoc, he does have a small role, but it's just very small. He's there, and then it's explained where his character is going, not literally just in the fact, I guess I'm doing spoilers. He's rescued by Mystique. They were going to be taken to be experimented on by William Stryker, and Mystique saves them all, but we don't know where he goes to. We don't know if he goes into hiding. We don't know if he's able just to go back home and utilize an alias or just use his name. So none of that is described or detailed, and I don't think that's good showing. I think that's just kind of ignoring a plot beat just to continue with the main story, but hopefully Havoc will be present in the next movie. If not, the small parts that he did have, I did appreciate, but it does make me feel like I do wish he was present more often. And I'm just going back to so really quickly, the future cast. I would argue that the future cast has a bigger role that the quote unquote the present cast does, but all the actors who portray those characters. We have Bishop, Iceman, Kitty Pryde, Storm. I think they all did a great job. It was really fun seeing them fighting against the Sentinels. I'm not gonna lie, that last climactic portion, when it came between the fight, the future X-Men versus the Sentinels and the quote unquote past X-Men versus the government, I was personally more invested in the future timeline just because it really did feel like time was running out for them, and the audience member really does feel the implications that this is their last chance. If the Sentinels get them in the future, that's it. The X-Men are done and over for. And it was great to see that at the very last second, the future changes because of the choice that Mystique makes to not kill the president, nor to go after any of the high name individuals who are with them, including Trask. Um, yeah, I do. One minor complaint I do have is I do wish that Charles' relationship with Mystique was emphasized more. I feel like definitely if it wasn't for Charles, Mystique would have did what her future self would have done and set into motion events that would have cemented the X-Men's future. If it wasn't for Charles Xavier being present to help being that Jiminy Cricket essentially for Mystique, I think Mystique would have done that immoral action rather than taking the route that Charles wanted for her, the route that the mutant kind needed for her to take in general, right? And it's interesting to see. I'm really hoping in the First Class, I really like the relationship that they developed, that they, again, being the writers, that they developed between Raven and Charles Xavier. And I did feel that emotional dropout when at the end of the movie, Mystique chooses to go with Magneto. And I think they do a great job, again, the writers, they do a great job of emphasizing that Mystique or Raven, she's two people and one individual. What I mean by that is she has a choice to either focus on being Raven and going down that route or being Mystique and going down that route. It's her, the individual, who has to make the choice who she wants to be. And it's looking like she's going to be someone in the middle, someone who has the ideals that Charles Xavier has, but also at the same time, she still wants to focus on the benefit and betterment of mankind, of mutant kind. And so she's going to be walking her own path. So I do really think that's cool. I do wish that was emphasized more in this movie. But we'll see. Maybe it'll be emphasized in future movies. I do think Jennifer Lawrence is part of Apocalypse. I don't think she returns for Dark Phoenix, but I'm not 100% sure about that. So would I recommend Days of Future Past? Yes, I definitely would, especially if you've seen First Class. First Class does a great job of setting up these characters that we're already familiar with a new cast, and Days of Future Past does a even better job of continuing these new casts of character stories and making the audience actually care about them, while at the same time keeping in mind the original cast from the original X-Men trilogy and still not casting them aside, making us realize that they're still part of the story, just no longer part of a certain future that came to be, right? So that's really cool as an X-Men fan. It's cool that one doesn't need to put aside the original trilogy and his new Bryan Singer trilogy. I guess Bryan Singer's the director. But we'll see how it ends. We'll see. I am aware that a lot of fans really love the first two original X-Men movies, but X-Men 3, I think it's called The Last Stand, apparently is not the greatest. I did watch that in theaters, but I was really young, so when one is young, they usually like things that maybe one shouldn't like as much as they should, right? Because they lack those critical thinking skills or those critical comprehension skills. But I am looking forward to watching X-Men Apocalypse. Fingers crossed that the quality of writing continues and that the characterization continues as well. Thank you so much for watching, or pardon me, for listening. If you did watch X-Men Days of Future Past, I hope you let me know your own personal thoughts. Feel free to do so either in the comments or send me a personal message. Have a great day and take care.